Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for Opinion Court. Please get in touch with us to 2422. That's our SMS line. And if you're online, please use the hashtag Opinion Court so that we can track your conversation. I will reintroduce my panel to you. From my far right is Edward Kisingani, who is our resident political analyst, and of course he is an educationist as well. And next to him is Janet Muthoni-Ouko of the Elimu Yetu Coalition, which is an education rights she's an education rights advocacy specialist. To my left is Anthony Mureithi with the Kenya Private Schools Association, and next to him Dr. John Mugo, an education researcher with Uwezo Kenya. You're all welcome to the program. So let's all start with just your initial views on the surprise results announcement. Janet, what did you think?
Wow, it was very interesting because no one actually expected such kind of speed. And I think everyone was beginning to speculate that the examinations went well, but then the process of marking, probably if it takes too long, then cartels have time to manipulate the process. I think that was very good ambush. We really admire the accuracy and the timeliness with which the process was conducted.
All right, Doctor?
It is really good. I think it's to congratulate the people who planned this and who executed it. It is giving us new hope. In terms of the direction we are moving in examinations and assessment. It is a good time, I think, for parents and the candidates who received the results today. We thank the team.
Anthony?
Well, let me say, it was wow. It was nice. It was nice. I think from our side of the take on this, I think it was something that was beautiful. We appreciate it. The fact that it was done with efficiency is nice. The fact that it did not delay, the better. Let's move on. Let's do something else. Let's go to a new cycle of education matters. It was nice.
Prof, praise as well?
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. The fact that the results are out, and it's also a demonstration of what all of us as public servants should do. The bare minimum we should do is exactly what Dr. Matiang'i has done.
That's the bare minimum.
That is the bare minimum we should do. Unfortunately, many of us cannot go to the bare minimum. We can't even reach the bare minimum. So it was a terrific thing that happened, and the fact that nobody's results were cancelled, and also the discipline that went into the process. If you leave aside the fact that it was announced without everybody being ready for it, but the discipline that went into it, the concern, the commitment, is a terrific thing for our country. For the first time, we are hearing some good news from Jogo House.
Janet, is speed equal to actual reform?
I think for everything there has to be a process. You know, it's not overnight, but I think the idea is that there is hope that at least there is one thing that can be done well, at least within the education sector, and at least we have seen that there is a way cartels can be contained. You know, so many people have been so helpless and hopeless. You know, the desperation that parents had the other time the results were being released, and actually so many people were giving up. But at least there is now hope that even the much other bigger issues of accountability within the sector, there is at least somewhere someone can hold, and at least we all have hope that it is doable, or it's not lost.
Doctor, do you believe the ministry scored a home run in this, and what do you think made it that successful?
First, I think, was the analysis, because many times we treat symptoms rather than the cause. They took time to go deep into the problem and analyze it and talk to everyone who is involved to get insight, because without that they would not have been able to develop a strategy. The second thing, I think, is a commitment. We saw personal commitment. I mean, seeing Dr. Matiang'i in a school, seeing PS Kipsang, seeing Nancy Macharia out there themselves opening containers. It takes passion and personal commitment. And the third thing, I think, is the teamwork. It's the first time we have seen an interior minister or ICT coming to release an examination. We are used to doing it, talking to ourselves as teachers and education experts, not knowing that we could draw other kind of expertise that would make us stronger.
Do you think we found a foolproof system, Macharia? Is this the end of exam cheating?
No. I think there's something that Janet said. It's a process. The one thing we must appreciate, it has started somewhere, and it's moving forward. Let me say, basically for us as private sector, we appreciate anything that goes towards a good return for investment. And what the CS has done is brought credibility to the whole examination process, regardless of how people would put it. And you see, credibility now adds value to actually what we have as an education sector in Kenya. Because what happened last year was very bad, and everybody lost. But when things come up like that, I think the only way is forward. There can be no... In fact, let me say from the private sector, we have to say, for what the CS has done in the shortest time he has done, because there's something even Daktari asked me, did we have a meeting with the CS on Monday? We did. What did he tell us? Most of what came out today also came out in some of those meetings. He was very categorical, very clear about it. As private sector, that is what we want, so that we can move forward. We are providing education with a very good structure, an infrastructure that is actually worth it. Now, what we want, or what we would rather ask for, is that what he is doing should be now institutionalized into something that can run for posterity. Such that it's not just Matiang'i who's doing it, but whoever else comes in will do the same. Because we are seeing results. We can't complain.
Prof, are there areas, though, that still need tightening?
A lot of areas. The entire education sector has been rotten for a very, very long time. There are many things involving school fees, the charges made to different students for different purposes. That needs a lot of reform. And then it's not just the examination sector, access to education in some areas, some students, some kids can't access education because of certain obstacles. Those areas really need to be checked. In fact, even infrastructure in some schools, day schools, although the government has done very well by making sure that most schools have electricity, but in terms of the actual infrastructure, where the kids can sit well on good desks, and then and get correct instruction, that is requires. Even school management systems, they require a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of wastage. People will tell you, and if you have a kid in high school or primary school, that the money that kids pay for school fees is very little. But we know very well that the management of school systems, with regard to the public money which comes in, as well as government money that comes in, there is a lot of wastage, and unless we do it, I think it won't improve and the standards that we are looking forward to. So I think Matiang'i, even university education, the entire system, university education is a scandal. I think he needs to, for example, check the self-sponsored programs, where vice chancellors have been allowed to keep a lot of money, and the government does not even check how much of that money is being used well. At one time, there was a threat from the former CS Kaimenyi to deal with the problem, gave an ultimatum, but the vice chancellors just overlooked him. So I think Matiang'i has started somewhere, and he's trying to clean a big problem. I think the problem in the education sector has been going on for a very long time, and it needs to be sorted out. It won't take one night or 2 nights to do that. But definitely, I think we have the right commitment from the ministry. At policy level, these things must be put into policy so that we continue with them the way they are, because Matiang'i is just a human being. He will work there and leave. He's having a tour of office at Jogo House, and other people will come in. So there are a lot of reforms. The biggest one is on curriculum. I think the making of curriculum has been completely politicized in this country. And many people have tried to change this curriculum for a very long time, and some people argue, if you change, there are a lot of people who argue that if you change this curriculum, you are spoiling the Nyayo era 844, and that has spoiled the motivation to change curriculum that is completely relevant to our vision 2030. So when time meetings are called, some people are very resistant because they have the connection with the past. But generally, I think we needed something like this to start off, and then the reform process can begin. I think what he has done is just 1 over 90 of what should be done to clean the education sector.
What's 2, Janet?
Wow, I think for me the biggest thing is that what the CS has given, the gift he has given to these children, because I'm believing they were prepared, and none of them would have solicited to cheat. It is adults that cause children to cheat. So he's given them a very good gift that they have very clean results. But then moving forward, there are those who are feeling very hopeless tonight, and even a good number of the parents, because they surely will not be able to proceed to the next level. Why? Because government has not made it its business to ensure that secondary school in this country is affordable. I want to note here clearly that there is nobody in this country who can comfortably afford 120, and especially not you and I, but the millions of parents out there who are struggling in the market. They are hawking. They can't afford the 100,000 shillings that is being charged by Alliance and so many other schools. And those costs are not justified. But what is government doing about it? The same cartels, everyone is quiet about them. And despite various circulars, despite so many other things, they still remain adamant. They charge as though schools belong to them. I think the biggest gift that we can give to these children is for government to just do what it is supposed to do. The constitution of this country is very clear, and the Basic Education Act. Education is a right of every child. There is no way our public schools can even be more expensive than private schools. Private schools even pay teachers. Private schools even make profit. How about our public schools? It is just not going to be possible, and it is not business as usual. I think it is now time that government dug in to the mess that is our secondary schools, and actually, because what is happening now...
Do you believe it's cartel run?
Yes, it is. It is cartel run, because as we speak now, there are parents holding fee structures, and they can hear me now, of 53,000 Kenya shillings. But they will receive phone calls from principals that send 17,000. Otherwise, come for your daughter. We receive those kinds of SMSs, and I'm asking, if you cannot solicit school fees through legal means such as fee structures, how can you solicit school fees through an SMS? Why are parents being treated to this kind of a thing? And I think it's just a free way that the government has just let principals or heads of schools operate, and it is surely injuring so many parents, and so many learners are now very hopeless. Because even as we are told that the Form 1 selection process is going to be flawless, it is not
automated.
It is not true that all those children that will be admitted to Alliance will join Alliance, because it is not affordable to so many children. Some of them will end up in those day schools down there. So it is just not enough for us to just sit back. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in bringing back accountability in the education. It is the only sector that accountability is not there. And Kenyans must begin looking at education as a business, because it is the biggest spender of our money. But do we get value for that money? Right. No, we do not get value for that money.
Let me bring you in, Dr. Muko, on the same point, which was moving it forward. Now it will be Form 1 selection. As you mentioned, it's automated, and by and large, the CS is saying that this should not be something that will be subjected to cartel or undue influence. You will pretty much end up in the school that your grade prescribes for you to go to. Do you agree with Janet that this is still subject to cartel manipulation, perhaps, and what interventions should be made?
It is important to have hope, and I think this day has ushered in a new ray of hope. We had reached the bottom. I think what we received in 2014-15 was pretty disheartening, and many Kenyans never believed, just like the way we are battling with the corruption, we never believed that it would have something like this. So I think it is good to give them a chance to see what strategy they have. But of course, one of the challenges is that we still don't have 100% transition. From the results we have received, you have seen that around a fifth of the pupils have scored less than 150 marks. And so when you look at those that are scoring below 100 marks, it raises question on now what kind of transition is possible to them. And that's where now the narrative of a technique or village polytechnics will come in, because spaces are not enough. We still cannot accommodate 20% of them into secondary schools. So there is still a dilemma, but I think credible results offer now a platform to look at it, and also the openness. What I liked most is Dr. Matiang'i's announcement that data is now going to be available, because we have really struggled to access this data. So we can now be able to analyze and see if these results are credible. These ones who are getting so low marks, what is the issue? Is it that they have learning disabilities? Is it that they come from extremely disadvantaged backgrounds? We'll be able even now to map the results and see where is it that very low scores are coming from.
Right.
We have seen tentative results showing counties that are at the bottom, Mandera and the others. So we now have, I think, a platform to engage and now get back to see how do we assure quality learning for every Kenyan child, wherever they are and regardless of whatever background they come from. So I think this now, the fact that they got the mark that belongs to them will now be very easy even placing them to secondary schools, because there won't be such big controversy, because there were feelings of discrimination, feelings of inequity when you know that you didn't access and you're seeing other people celebrating because they had the exam earlier on or they had malpractices that they'll escape with. So it is, I think, good to give it a chance, just like we gave this marking a chance, to see now what is it that is being cooked for the moving the children out to the secondary schools.
Another point of concern that appears to have been addressed by the CS today was in regards to not having these multiple registration centers, and this especially affects private schools where you have a quote-unquote group of schools and then you get all your best candidates to register at one center and fairly I suppose affecting the ranking of the school system. You represent private schools. What is your own thoughts in terms of real equity and real competitiveness being reintroduced into the sector?
First time, thank you very much. It's a very good question now, and I would like more conversation on education, not just when the results come out, but all through the process. The issue of multiple centers. You see, people tend to look at private education and just think of it as a business. It's more to it than just that. Private education, in fact, I'll tell you, most of the guys that actually have schools, majority of them are actually keen educationists. They are interested in driving the agenda of education for the Kenyan child. I'll remind that for the Kenyan child, not private or public. The issue of center is a no-go zone. It's an old school mentality. It's something that was there a long time ago. I don't think it even exists as such. And any person that does that, I'll be very honest, that's a person who's not forward-thinking. There's something that my friend discussed about. I don't want to speak for ministry here, but they've really engaged us when it comes to curriculum reform. We are sitting in the National Steering Committee, so we understand a lot of what is coming up. And what he's saying is coming up. What happens to the 150? The government has actually put very clearly that they will find a system which there's 100% transition, and then you have different pathways at the beginning. Now, that is opportunity for everybody to engage in. That is also opportunity for private sector to engage in. And you'll be shocked that we'll be among the first ones that are actually going to catch up on that new change. There is the issue of skills transition, finding skills. We're not just interested in academic results. We're also interested in doing something worthwhile for the Kenyan child. And the issue is productivity, because we produce education not for the sake of somebody knowing something, but rather to use what they know in something productive in the future. And that's what we are looking at. There was also the issue of tuition, because that's an agenda that will probably come in the middle of discussion. Tuition is no discussion. It is illegal. Everybody knows that. Any person that does it must face.
But my brother, the problem is what Annie is asking. This multiple registration is going on, but when you want to trace the origin of the problem, is the way we have criminalized our own kids when they don't score marks that we expect them to score. I think the emphasis on that should not be done at the expense of making kids who don't score, for example, 400 to look useless. If you look at everybody's academic career, there was a time when we didn't do very well, but given a chance, we can also do very well. So the biggest challenge for the private sector and everybody else in the education sector is to investigate the best way in which we can celebrate those who do very well without necessarily criminalizing those who do not measure up to our expectations. And for you are actually victims of the criminalization of those who don't do very well, because it's a business. You are supposed to attract students to your schools, and then so you separate kids, and you give them a tag. that we are taking you to the next station, even if you don't care, you don't pass, we really don't care about you. But the name of the school will be seen as, this is a place which performs very well. We shouldn't emphasize that criteria of doing very well at the expense of kids who don't do well. Some kids develop over time. They need more time to do things. Maybe the kids who have scored 340 marks now, they are going to get a straight S in Form 4. They can do it, and they might get first-class honors in the university. So this transition, kids should be allowed. They shouldn't hit the peak. For me, if you asked me if I had a kid in standard 8, I would just ask the bare minimum to enter secondary school, because I want this kid to hit the minimum when they are already going to Form 4 and they are about to join the university, so they can choose a career of their choice.
And I think at the same note, that is why we are saying about the point that Dr. Mugo was raising. Every other year we are sending about 250 to polytechnics, and and it is not that is the best option for them. I think the government should make a very open admission that it is because we have not expanded secondary school opportunities enough is why these 250 we are trying to really locate where they shall go. But the desire of the Basic Education Act is that all those children then are able to transit to secondary schools, because it is really premature to release some of them, and not because one of them wants to be a tailor, but because there is no opportunity for you at secondary school, because you do not have the spaces for the entire 900,000. So I think we must say, because it has been a trend that every year 200,000 we are looking for them an opportunity to go. In terms of performance and moving forward, we would want to see that last year we said 200 did not get an opportunity. So this year we are saying 150, so that we can be able to see progress. And in about 3 or 4 years, then we have spaces for everybody to transit to secondary education, and those that want to pursue technical courses at their level, then they can do that.
And so by expanding opportunity, as you phrased it, in secondary education, what would that look like for students who scored below par for the transition rate? How would you open that up? And
I think the discussion is bigger than just because remember we are talking about reforming the entire education system, so that this KCPE does not look like a sieve. We are sieving those that are going. We are using it to know who will go to Alliance, to know who will not go, and to know who will go to a polytechnic. So how do you expand the opportunity in secondary?
Let me explain, and let me add that so that we can better look at it in perspective. First, we realize that private sector can actually fill all the spaces that government requires
for the transition.
All the space, because it's an opportunity for us to actually participate. That's why we are there. What happens is now we'd have to lobby government to also support us in that initiative. I'll give you a very good example. You see, like the whole tablets thing. The government is bringing tablets for the public schools. We also now are demanded in a way, because of the market forces, to actually have them in now. Now the thing is, they are as expensive for us as you would buy it.
So you're looking at some sort of subsidy?
That's what we fight for, subsidies. We're looking at greater participation between public and private, because at the end of the day, you see, education is expensive. Janet has said it, it's very expensive. But when it comes to the private sector, we make it cheaper. Because I can imagine how much money is spent by government, the percentage of the GDP spent by government for education. How much of it can it be even brought to almost like...
But arguably private schools are already making a killing, and the contrary argument would be bring down the cost of this learning. That will not be exorbitant. It's a right for all.
And when you say killing, I wonder what you're saying. Janet just said 120,000 is for a public school.
I think what happens in the private sector is there's more effectiveness.
Efficiency.
And I was just going through some fee structures, and I have some day schools that are charging 1,000 Kenya shillings for lunch for an entire term. But in every public secondary school, that goes to about 3,000 per term. Yet in the private sector, they are doing about 1,000. So there is something about if anybody that wants to get rich, they have to manage a public school, because it's just nobody cares. Ask for parents 300 shillings, and the following day they bring without anybody really asking.
Is subsidizing private education the way to go, Doctor?
No.
We are dealing with two issues here. One is space, the other one is cost. Now, when we look at primary education, for instance, the first thing to admit is that education is a good, is a public good. It is a right for all. But then how does the government then make it available to all at the same time, at the same intensity, at the same quality, and so on? And this where for economies like African economies, the reason why we still have so big proportions of children is because also we've not taken participation seriously. So I think the role of government should be first of all regulation. That a Kenyan child is a Kenyan child regardless of whether they're in a private or in a public school. Now it is a market, because the parents who are making choice to take their children to private schools have a reason why they have to cross them, and this being a market, so the biggest thing, like now when we want to achieve 100% transition, we have made a lot of progress. When you look at 10 years ago, we were at around 49% transition. Now we are talking about 78%. And so in incentivizing private investment as an interim measure is extremely critical. But then you see that the market will even out. As the quality improves in the public school, parents will now make better choices without and with less pressure.
In fact,
final comment, Bob, we're out of time.
Dr. My view is this, that public schools have been left to their own devices, and therefore we must resurrect the public school. In fact, some of the countries that we know that have done very well, like even Russia, in the field of education, they did not surrender education to the private sector. So we lost the battle at that point, and I think there is need for Dr. Matiang'i to think of a way alongside us to see how best we can resurrect the power of the public school, which is not there now.
And that is a brilliant note to wind up this conversation on. I thank you all for your views. We're back with more news after this. Don't go away. Thank you.